to this now. The South African Council of Churches says it was heartbreaking to hear of the gas explosion in the Joburg CBD last week. Its General Secretary, Bishop Malusi Mpumlwana, took part in a walk of witness on Bree Street, along with other religious leaders this morning. He joins me now for more on this. Bishop, thank you so much for your time this evening. Now, you call this a walk of witness, and it's completely different witnessing something on video and then being at the physical site of such a disaster. What did you see and experience today in the CBD?
It's actually very different indeed. Being in the street where it happened, when we got to the place where they pointed out where the person that has passed away actually did die. We were struck by this and we all fell silent. And the moment of sort of reflection on the price that this person has paid, because of what has happened and what happens to their family, breadwinner perhaps. And it was distressing. And so we said a prayer. And so the witness in this case is a witness of, we see for ourselves what has happened, but also it enables us to put our finger on what needs to be done in order not to have another Bree Street incident in Johannesburg. But it is also a witness of confidence in the presence of God, even in the pain. And so this was an initiative between the Bishop of Johannesburg and the Speaker of Johannesburg. But it happened to coincide with the plans of the Gauteng Council of Churches under Bishop Rakuba. And so we joined them and invited other faiths and many other churches that are not part of the South African Council of Churches, because it is a collective witness of people of faith that would make a difference, especially if we were to make sure that what is needed in the maintenance of the systems and the infrastructure in Johannesburg enables us to guarantee in some way that life will be protected in the city.
In many instances, religious communities, faith-based communities are sidelined when it comes to these kinds of issues because, we think, well, what is really the place of religion in governance, in municipal governance? And let's not offend anyone, let's keep it all very neutral and secular. So why do you think it is important exactly for religious leaders and faith-based communities to, take part, to embody and to demonstrate active citizenship by going to the sites of disasters?
South Africa is a religious society. In every ward of the 4,400 wards in this country, there are no less than 10 to 15 places of worship of whatever faith in this country. And so when you talk about religious communities, it's not about the leaders. It's not about someone in some office. It is actually the reality that in every ward, you've got worshiping communities, and these are our congregations of all denominations and of all faiths, whether it's Muslim, Hindu, Christian, it doesn't matter what they are. They all are worshiping communities and they belong. So you can almost say that the religious leaders are leaders of communities that we share with the municipal leaders. And that's why we want to make sure. I mean, if you've heard on occasion where religious leaders are complaining, particularly Bishop of Johannesburg, for example, complained about the filth around the city center. And it is precisely because he represents the citizens of that place that is able to speak in those terms. I have to say also that we don't end there. We grieve that South Africa is such a divided society that there isn't a sense of a common identity, so that when we deal with issues such as these, they don't get politicized, they don't get ethnicized, they don't get racialized, but they become issues of a community, because that's how we would like to see it. And so we'll be making much more noises about, in the months coming, about the need for one common nationhood to deal with the problems of our society, which are many.
You speak of the pain, I'm quoting here, the pain of this city will remain running deep for a while. And when you say that, are you speaking of just this specific incident or the bigger picture of pain, tragedy, poverty and neglect that we see in so many of our communities?
It's 3 levels. The first one is that what has happened there at Bree Street this past week. Just talk about the person who has died. Where is his family? What have they been living on? Where are his children, if he has any? And what is going to be the impact of their life on their lives going forward? Those that have been injured, in the time that they were away in hospitals, mercifully, only a couple of them still remain in hospital. But what then becomes the nature? How injured have they been? What does it mean? In other words, there's a micro at the family level. That's the first. And that applies also to the businesses on Bree Street. We saw some are open, but others are still closed. And so that has just that micro level impact. And the second is the psyche of our society in Johannesburg. How do we know, if we do not know at this point what actually caused it? How do we know it's not going to happen on Commissioner Street next and in another part of Johannesburg? We don't know because they haven't found what the problem is, and therefore it cannot be fixed. It cannot be addressed. So that's the second level. And the third level then goes into the totality of the problems we have in our country that demand a lot of attention. Some are saying these problems happen because of corruption. These problems happen because no maintenance. But that kind of decline is not only in the city of Johannesburg. It is part of the malady of our society nationwide. And that's one of the things that we absolutely intend to address. We will be making a lot of noise about this in the coming months.
Well, thank you so much for speaking to us this evening and sharing your experiences with us and with our viewers. That was Bishop Malusi Mpumlwana from the South African Council of Churches talking to us after visiting the site of that Bree Street explosion last week.